Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the German football podcast from the Football Grad Network. I'm your host, Bryce Dunn, and we're going to be looking over match day 2 as it's completed. So let's start, as we have done the other weeks, with the results of the weekend. On Friday night, we've seen Hannover holds Borussia Dortmund 0-0. Are Favre's problems starting to appear straight away? Well, we'll be discussing that in a little bit. But moving on, before we get to that, Frankfurt were at home to Werder Bremen. Werder Bremen getting a fantastic away victory 2-1. Yep, the curse of Manuel Veth has struck upon Bayer Leverkusen as they fell to Wolfsburg 3-1, their worst start in over 20 years. Julian Nagelsmann, Hoffenheim managed to recover well after their opening day loss at 3-1. Over Freiburg, we see Augsburg draw with Borussia Mönchengladbach. Nuremberg and Mainz draw 1-1. Stuttgart, well, things didn't quite go to plan for them, as champions Bayern managed to beat them 3-0 away from home. On Sunday, then, we've seen RB Leipzig struggle after European qualification, 1-1 to Dusseldorf. And then Schalke, well, things have not started the way that they would have planned, losing to Hertha Berlin at home 2-0. So what topics will we be discussing today? Well, I've mentioned some already. We're going to speak about Dortmund dropping points already. What does this mean exactly for Favre's project? Bayern, yep, as I mentioned, Manu predicted that they could possibly be champions this year. Things have not went well after 2 straight defeats. Bayern dominates Stuttgart. Leipzig struggle, as I mentioned, to follow up a qualification in Europe against Dusseldorf. We'll have to see what they've managed to do on the final days of the transfer window. Schalke, yep, lost 2 in a row. Has Tedesco been found out? Also, we're going to talk about the German national team start on Thursday against France. Guys, we don't have Chris Williams with us, unfortunately, this week, but we've filled his shoes massively with 2 other guests. So I'll introduce, as always, Manu Veth. Manu, you're joining me, as always.
Yeah, as always. I'm always here. Don't have anything else to do. No, I'm really looking forward to this podcast. We have some interesting topics, and I guess I also have to admit that I may have gotten Bayer a little wrong. Just a tiny bit, maybe.
Yes, who would have thought things could go so badly for Bayer Leverkusen already? But you probably heard in the background a voice there, the newest member to the football grad team in Matthew Marshall. Matthew, thank you for coming on the pod. First time on here. I suppose for anyone that doesn't know him, well, you're going to have to find out his Twitter feed and start following with all the live videos from the stadium. But Matthew, tell us a little bit about yourself. How have you ended up getting such a gig?
Hi guys, thanks for having me on first of all. As you can probably hear, I'm born in Australia and was involved in football, had a radio show going on over there in Sydney for a while, and lived in Portugal for a while also. Got into the European football pretty heavily there, and met a fantastic lady very recently who happened to be moving to Bonn, and so I came over to Germany to be with her and got involved in the football. So very happy to be attending games now and seeing things firsthand.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we really appreciate having you on board the Football Grad team. But joining Matthew, Manu, and I is, well, I've got all the M's today, actually, I've just noticed. We're bringing back someone that's been on the second half of last season, and we're honoured to have him back on here, is Mark Lovell. Mark, how have you been since we last spoke to you?
Thanks, Bryce. Yeah, it's good to be on again. Had a good summer, a good World Cup. The cricket's been good, a lot of golf, a lot of tennis. It's great. And started the season, Bayern winning, situation normal.
Mark, I have to remind you, you're a German citizen now. So the World Cup wasn't great.
Well, I'm actually both, yeah. So I can. I was very happy that England outperformed expectations and reached the semi-finals. They should, let's be honest, I blame myself if I'm really truthful, because I started looking at flights to Moscow during half time, and that put the real jinx on it, and they never recovered.
Don't blame yourself. Don't beat yourself up so much more. There'll be plenty more opportunities for England, I'm sure. But guys, let's get back to domestic football and talk German football. More importantly, Manu, we watched Dortmund on Friday night slip up, second game of the season. Well, what exactly does dropping 2 points mean for Favre and his men? Is it unraveling already?
No. That's a long answer, really short. No, come on. I mean, we all knew that the way Lucien Favre plays football will take time. And he has reminded us countless times on television, on radio, newspaper articles that please give us time. That's basically the bottom line. I think that when you look at this game in particular, it wasn't a great performance by Borussia Dortmund, but I think it was also the sort of performance where last year they would have slipped up. And when you look at the chances that they create, I mean, Marco Reus, who was denied, quick-fire was denied just before halftime, right? Had Essa turned away a shot from him, with toe poke, and then he hit the crossbar. I mean, those are the kind of games, of course, you have to win if you want to win the championship. But I think the way I see the season going, big teams will slip up points left, right, and center, because I think that the league in general has become tighter. Now, of course, I think that in general, this is just a growing pain game. And I think when you look at the build up, it was still very slow. The running paths weren't just 100%. And as much as Hannover's game is not an example of where Dortmund is right now, just like the Leipzig game wasn't an example of where Dortmund are right now in terms of development. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle at the moment.
Yeah, it was a game, like Manu said, that Dortmund would probably have lost last season, when they were totally, chaotic and no organisation. It was a deserved point for Hannover. Even Stevens, 54% possession for Hannover, 46 for Dortmund, 7 shots on goal for Hannover, 8 for Dortmund. So a draw was a fair result. And Bobby Wood, of course, could have nicked it at the end for Hannover. He needs to do better there. So, I think the expectations were that Dortmund, after their, big win against Leipzig to start the season, that they could go over to Hannover and roll them over easy. But it's not quite that simple. And, Favre is not going to play expansive football out on his travels. It's going to be tight. They're going to try and play on the break, even against the lower lights of the Bundesliga.
Yeah, he's very Lobanovsky-esque in his approach, right? Win all your home games and get a point on the road. He's very calculated. He's very calculative when it comes to his approach to football.
Yeah, it should be fine if they want to qualify for, the Europa League places again, But, I think everyone in Germany and German football wants them to challenge Bayern for the title, but that's not, sadly, I don't see that happening for a couple of seasons.
I mean, if we bring Matthew into this as well, just to discuss Dortmund, I mean, we look at them dropping points. second game, and you think that, yes, it's early days, it's only the second game of the season, but already they're points behind Bayern. Does this ultimately mean that they've slipped up, they've let go of any possibility of catching Bayern already, or is it a bit too early?
It's too early days. I mean, I'm sure they'll be fine. I'm pretty confident they'll still be able to secure second spot. This is a long-term project, and Favre is going to need time here with the new central defensive partnership, Akanji, Diallo. The central midfield is looking pretty good with Witzel and Delaney coming in and having a good impact already. Dahoud, it looks like he might have a good season under his former manager, and so many options up front for Favre with Paco Alcacer coming in. Marius Wolf didn't have a great game. Maybe he might have needed a bit more time to get used to things. But, with Pulisic and Sancho, there's options all over the place here for Dortmund, and I've got no doubts that they'll finish comfortable top four, and I'll be surprised if they didn't finish second, to be honest.
I'm even surprised if they didn't finish first. I totally disagree with Mark. But we'll get to talk about Bayern a little bit later. But the first two games that Bayern played didn't 100% convince me either.
Well, it's good. I look forward to having a constructive chat with you, Manu, about that.
Well, just to go back to Dortmund, Matthew, if we speak about the performance, you talk about Alcacer coming in. Do you think that this type of game, the only issue really was the lack of striker, or do you think there's more problems that need to be addressed by Favre as the coming weeks and months go on?
I just think it's such early days, in an away game. Hannover were pretty good at home last season. These players still need a lot of time to gel with or without Favre. So this is a long-term project, and I'm pretty confident by the second half of the season this team is going to be playing some pretty good football. They got a pretty decent draw in the Champions League. Atletico, obviously, an extremely tough team, but Brugge should be able to be taken care of. Monaco, we're starting to see now that the amount of players that they're having to sell might be finally starting to catch up with them. So I'd say they should have a good chance of getting through the Champions League. And like I say, I'm sure they'll come good. And it's only a matter of time before they start playing a lot more attractive football and winning games on a more regular basis.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear a bit of positivity. I'm going to go to Mark quickly, though, and ask his opinion, I suppose, on the Champions League draw for Borussia Dortmund. Matthew mentioned it here that they're in with Atletico Madrid, they're in with Club Brugge, they're in with Monaco. I mean, are you going to be more, complimentary when it comes to that draw and maybe them getting through that group?
As Matt said, I'd expect them to qualify from that group. You have to respect Atletico Madrid, but Monaco are not as strong as they were. You can't continue to sell your best players and hope to really compete at the very top of the game. And, Belgian football, you expect Dortmund to beat Bruges home and away, and that's 6 points, and that'll go a long way to securing qualification. I expect them to qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League quite comfortably.
That's a much more positive reaction than what I was maybe expecting, Mark. Manu, what about you? Is it going to be all three of you agreeing that Dortmund really should get through this group?
Well, the Champions League draw has been kind to all the Bundesliga sides, I felt, and I think that Dortmund should not only try to qualify out of the group, they may want to look to maybe even win this group. I think that has to be the expectations when you are a German team. And then last year was very disappointing for German clubs in general. And I think that they all have something to make up for, considering how German football performed internationally. So, I think that Dortmund will easily qualify out of this group, and I think they should actually challenge for first.
Good stuff. We'll touch a little bit more on the Champions League in time. But Matthew, I mean, if we were to just talk about Hannover, yes, it's a good result for them. They're going to be happy about this home draw, but that's two draws so far for them after two games. Will they be positive by their starts? Where do you think this season is going to take them?
Well, it's tough. I mean, I had a few concerns over how they would get by without Salif Sane, he was just so good for them last season. But looks like Babu is really coming on strong, And the other winger there, Linton Miner, looked really good on the other side of the wing. I think Wallace could be a really important player for them this season. He didn't have the best time over at Hamburg, but from what I saw there, he looks like he's in pretty good form, and he'll be an important player for them this season. Look, I think they'll be okay. I don't think there's any relegation drama with Hannover. Mid-table will probably be a good result for them. Like I said, those two wingers will probably cause a fair bit of problems for opposition teams. And, Fulkrug could score a few goals. Valdemar Anton's doing okay in central defence. He's coming on nicely, progressing well. So I don't think there's any relegation problems here with Hannover. And, mid-table, somewhere around there would be a good finish for them.
Yes, indeed. Well, Manu, we're going to go back to you, and so we're going to get rid of any optimism you may have as we talk about Bayer Leverkusen. A second loss. They've managed to lose you at home to Wolfsburg. What have you got to say for yourself? But the floor is yours, man.
I'm going to tip the same thing next year again.
Seems to be enjoying every second of this.
It's prediction times. I love prediction times. I wanted to rattle a few feathers, and I did. And I think over in Leverkusen, they retweeted my tweet. Remember that? I think they took it a little bit too serious themselves. I blame them for going with my prediction and thinking that would be enough to get the job done. Apparently not. No, but look, I'm not quite sure what to say because, Matt, you were at this game and we chatted during the game a little bit. Leverkusen stormed out of the gates. I thought they played really well the first 30 minutes or so. And I'm not sure what exactly happened, that it just completely kind of fell apart on them. That own goal, by Özcan, right? To make it 1-1. That's, not quite sure how that went in. And, from there on, it was just a complete disaster. And I'm really curious to hear your opinion because you chatted and said, well, when Herrlich made the substitutions, you were really concerned that you felt that he wasn't bringing on the right players, right?
Look, there's just so much to talk. We could have a whole show about Leverkusen and Heiko Herrlich, I think. But where to start? I think in transition, they're awful. They look good going forward, but as soon as they lose the ball, they're under pressure. Mitchell Weiser was obviously targeted in this game. He was getting double teamed regularly, and that's how Wolfsburg got their equalizer. There's just not enough players in this team that really like to defend. I'm not sure Ilario and Volland work that well together. Kai Havertz is a fantastic player, but playing him in a deeper role, I don't think works. And I know they've got injuries, but they did have Dominic Kor and Aaron Gies on the bench here. Aaron Gies coming off the bench late on. But look, end of last season, I saw Leverkusen quite a lot, and it's fine to change formations. Herrlich likes to go between the 4-2-3-1 and then basically go to the 3-5-2. But when you've got Leon Bailey and Julian Brandt as wingbacks, you're kind of asking for trouble. You saw it in the first game at Mönchengladbach, and I really worry for Heiko Herrlich. I've been thinking about how to say what I think about him without being too harsh, because I like him. And you got to respect his career and what a good player he was. But I think, honestly, this is just too much for him. I think tactically, he just doesn't have enough at this level. And you can say, okay, they finished fifth last year. They were close to the top three, on goal difference. But look at the squad he's got. Look at the players available to him. This squad is way better than Schalke, way better than Hoffenheim, man for man. No disrespect, obviously. And I thought of an interesting question here, Manu, and I'll pose it to Mark as well. Like, just hypothetically, let's just say you had Julian Nagelsmann in charge of Leverkusen at the beginning of last season. Where would they be? And where would Hoffenheim be if you put Herrlich in that seat?
I think that Hoffenheim would probably have finished mid-table. And Leverkusen last year, they would have easily finished second.
Well, there you go. And that sort of answers the question, doesn't it, about Heiko Herrlich? Like I said, I don't want to be too harsh because I respect everyone in the game. They're pros. But if you ask me honestly, I'd say he's lost the group. But I don't think he commands enough respect from the players. I think playing Bailey at wing-back just annoys him, and it annoyed him last year.
Yeah.
You saw Leon Bailey's comments after the game where they're not working hard for each other, stuff like that. I'm really worried, and I wasn't that surprised that these rumours have come out that he's under massive pressure, and Hasenhüttl is linked. Can you just tell me? I didn't heard that through you guys, but where has that come from exactly?
Kicker reported it, so that's pretty reputable. I think. I'm curious to hear what you think, Mark, but I think this squad screams Hasenhüttl. And I think that with you say there isn't quite enough defensive players in that squad, Matt, but you have the Bender twins that are working very hard, right? And Aranguiz, maybe to Herrlich's defense, he's not 100% fit yet. But I think you're quite right. I think when you have Bailey, Brandt, Volland, Alario, that's kind of set up attacking wise, screams Hasenhüttl football, in my opinion. Curious to hear what you think, Mark.
Well, Matt summed it up pretty well. I would add, they're lacking leadership on the pitch. There's
you got the Bender still, Mark.
Yeah, but they'd be better off at 1860 Munich and end their career there. But that's another story. I wish I was on that podcast with you, Manu, to warn you against tipping Leverkusen for any major deeds. Yeah, but just think back to that cup semi-final. Against Bayern, where they were torn apart at home. What was it, 6-2? They could have easily lost this game against Wolfsburg by more. It was 3-1. Wolfsburg could have easily scored more goals. They have loads of attacking talent, but they're lacking, a real strong leader on the pitch, and the shape is a little bit wrong. They need more strength.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree with that, Mark. I think the players are all there. I agree with the shape, but
then the system is all wrong for those players. Then that's Hasenhüttl. He played some really good counter-attacking football at Leipzig, but you can't win games of football without keeping clean sheets. So that's the first thing that any manager comes into a club and tries to sort out. They'd be better off going back to Hub Stevens and trying to sort it out that way rather than Hasenhüttl. But that was more of a joke.
I see no way possible that Leverkusen have any chance of keeping a clean sheet at the moment, to be honest. I mean, you can say, okay, look, they had 3 great chances to take the lead at Mönchengladbach. Didn't quite take them. Bailey hits the post. Okay. They got a lot of players out. First choice keeper, Adretsky, Red Sauce, Benders were out. Alexander Dragovic, accident waiting to happen. Just got rid of Henriks, which leaves them a little bit short in the fullback positions. Injuries, as we've talked about, to their central midfielders and the holding ones, Baumgartlinger, Aranguiz. I mean, Cork would have played for Havertz, but he's just trying to get too many attacking players on the pitch. The balance is all over the place. But I'll tell you the most worrying thing for me that I saw on the weekend, and that was, okay, the game's 1-1. Everything's not too bad. And then if you looked closely, Wendell got taken down in the build-up to the second goal. He wouldn't have done anything to stop the goal anyway. But what happened was Wendell went down, the ball came in, Wout Weghorst headed it in 2-1. And then what happened was, in 5 or so minutes, just complete panic and, looking like headless chickens. Herrlich and the players, no one knew what to do. No one knew what was happening. And he just could not figure out how to deal with the Wendell injury situation. And then before you knew it, Bailey was over on the left back position, goal kick. Bailey starts to charge up because he wants to get up there and attack. They lose the ball on the goal kick. Boom, boom. You could have driven 3 buses through that hole, stepping straight through 3-1, basically game over. But what I'm saying is, you look at someone like Pal Dardai yesterday, and these players know what they're supposed to be doing in every situation. You've got to be ready for these situations. Who's going to fill the hole? Who's going to take over? Who's going to cover? But Leverkusen on Saturday, just completely no clue what to do when Wendell went down, and it was game over.
Yeah, and also you've got Leverkusen, they've got a host of talent, that can't be denied. But problem here with going into the season, expectations were that they were going to, challenge for the title, however right or wrong those delusions were. So, and they've dropped the ball in the first game against Mönchengladbach, and then in front of their own fans against, what was deemed to be a very poor, average Wolfsburg side. So Leverkusen turned up expecting to beat them, and they failed miserably.
Well, Mark, just one last mention of Leverkusen, because as Matt said, it sounds like we could go on all night about this. But how do you see them getting on against Bayern Munich? Do you see them standing any chance whatsoever? Do you even see the international break coming before that helping them in any sort of way?
Absolutely, it's a sort of game. They will go to Bayern and they'll probably put in a really decent performance because expectations now are very low. Lost both their games. And I'm sure, with the players motivated to put in, they've got nothing to lose. They play with a little bit more freedom and they will give Bayern a very good game. That's the way that football works.
It'd be typical Bayer Leverkusen if they won that game.
I don't see them winning. Let's not get silly.
Not saying that they will, but it would be typical Leverkusen if they did.
that optimism's coming back.
It would be good for the Bundesliga as the product that Bayern suffer an early defeat. Yeah, but I don't see that happening. Well, Bayern are too well organised defensively. They're going to, if Leverkusen open up against them, Bayern will cut them to pieces.
Well, I think we better move on before we upset any more Leverkusen fans after all this talk. But Manu, let's talk about a side that have a little bit more to sing about after the weekend, and that was Hoffenheim beating Freiburg. They've recovered well after their opening day defeat to Bayern Munich, haven't they?
Yeah, they won the game that they needed to win, right? I think with Hoffenheim, the one thing that got a lot of us worried ahead of the season is that they, with Demirbay and Amiri, they were missing some massive key players in their creative midfield, and I think it showed against Bayern. Although I still feel that game against Bayern, and Mark, you were probably at that game, that if the referee decision goes a little bit different, the way that not everyone expects it to go, then I think they would have walked away with a point in Munich. Because I thought that they played quite well despite the injury problems that they have. But that's Nagelsmann football, right? I mean, everything that Leverkusen doesn't have, Hoffenheim does have, because they're just so well organized. And even if they are a few players down, every player on the pitch knows exactly what they're doing, what their job is, and how to break down the opposition. And I think as much as the Bayern result wasn't 100% telling on where Hoffenheim are at the moment, the Freiburg result probably isn't either, because, they're the opposite end of the spectrum. Bayern is the best team in the league, and Freiburg is one of the teams that will struggle against relegation. Yet at the same time, they got those 3 points, regardless. And I think that just shows you where Nagelsmann is in his development, as opposed to maybe where Herrlich is in his development at Leverkusen.
Absolutely. Hoffenheim deserved a point in Munich. They got a lot of criticism for their heavy tackling. They had the temerity to put in a few challenges. But the game was heading for a deserved draw, before Ribéry jumped over a defender's leg, and somehow it was deemed a penalty. We could talk all night about that as well. But, Bayern got the 3-1 in the end, and Hoffenheim recovered to beat Freiburg, a team that obviously, they'd be expected to beat, but they went a goal down. So, suffering with injuries as well. I think Hoffenheim have got 9 injuries now, so that's not a good sign heading into the Champions League. talking about Freiburg, before I forget, let's wish Christian Streich get well soon, because he's got a bad back and he hasn't even been at the opening 2 games. So that must be a big loss for Freiburg, because he's a real motivating force from the touchline. They're missing his intent, and they're going to struggle this season without him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the impact that coaches have, the fact that Freiburg perform as well as they do, and let's remember how small of a club they are in relation to all the other teams in this league. It's in many respects, it's down to him. The way he works there and the work that he does perform in Freiburg is just remarkable.
Yeah, he was linked to the Bayern job.
Yeah.
Whether that was a build rumor, but that's how highly thought of he is in the German game.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a force he's turned them into with what little resources he has to use. But Matt, if we talk a little bit more about Hoffenheim, obviously they're in the Champions League this time round. They've been drawn in Group F with Lyon, Manchester City, and Shakhtar Donetsk, which is not the easiest of groups. And it's always going to be difficult to balance your squad and your injuries, as Mark mentioned. To playing twice a week, and the next few weeks don't look very kind for them. So they're going to have Dusseldorf to take on. Okay, I'm sure they'll fancy their chances there. But then you've got Shakhtar Donetsk, you've got Borussia Dortmund, you've got Hannover, you've got RB Leipzig, then you've got Man City, that is. That's a big ask for them, isn't it, to come out of that with many victories?
It sure is, but in Nagelsmann I trust, honestly. I've been fortunate to see them quite a few times live, and every time I see them, more and more impressed with Nagelsmann and the way he has his side set up and the relationship he has with the players. Just phenomenal. When you look through this squad, you really have to be worried, I would say, if you're a Hoffenheim supporter for what happens next season. But look, they'll do better than most people think in a lot of these games. I don't like their chances, to be honest, of getting out of this group. I think the draw has been really tough for them, having to go to the Ukraine first up and then hosting Man City. They could be behind the 8 ball there pretty early on. But I saw them in the Pokal down at Kaiserslautern there when they won 6-1. And, Joel Linton is coming to the team. Bittencourt's sort of been put in a position he's not that familiar with. But when you look at the defence, I mean, it's just remarkable that they're doing so well. No disrespect to the players here, obviously, for Hoffenheim, but Akpoguma, we've seen already, he's a bit prone to some blunders. Bikakcik's same. Kazim Adams, he had a tough initiation there in Munich, but Kevin Vogt is just so important to this side. If he goes down, then you really have to worry. Although Benjamin Hubner will make a big difference when he comes back. His aggression, but so many central midfield injuries here with Geiger, Rupp, Amiri, Demi Bay, but I just can't speak highly enough of Nagelsmann, to be honest. And I'm sure they'll do better than most people think in these games, despite it being such a tough run of fixtures. Yeah,
absolutely. It's going to take quite a lot of strategies from Julian Nagelsmann over the next few weeks, isn't it, to get the best out of his side ahead of some of those games. But I'm looking forward to him taking on Pep Guardiola, I must say. Guys, let's move on to talk a little bit about Eintracht Frankfurt. Manu, we've seen them bring in a new face, or maybe not so new.
Yeah, Kevin Drupp is back. I guess if you're Renault, the keeper that came in to replace Radetzky, that must be just a massive blow for you, right? That they basically tested him in the DFL Super Cup where he didn't do well. He did okay in his first Bundesliga game last week, but then when you're Eintracht Frankfurt and you have the possibility of bringing someone like Kevin Drupp back, I guess you have to go for it. Now he did not make a big difference in that first game against Werder Bremen, where they lost 2-1 on the road. Ironically, Werder Bremen lost their goalkeeper, Pavlenka, who we hope a quick recovery, of course. But yeah, I guess with your Bruno, that's a big blow for you to basically sign for a new club and then on the transfer deadline, you're bringing in Kevin Trapp, who's not only a former goalkeeper, but is an important figure for this club and is very liked by the fans. And
Hi, this is Rachel Fisher.
And this is Desi Jenikin.
And we host the Hollywood Crime Scene podcast. We're really excited to tell you about the best Christmas ever on AMC+, where every day feels like Christmas morning.
It's the holiday season, and that means it's time to see old friends like Buddy the Elf, Heat Miser, and Clark Griswold. Plus, you get a stocking stuffed with highly acclaimed AMC series like The Walking Dead and Mad Men, new series like Gangs of London and The Walking Dead World Beyond. They're all here on AMC+.
So celebrate the best Christmas ever, anytime, anywhere. AMC Plus is the gift that keeps on giving all year long. Sign up today at amcplus.com. AMC Plus, only the good stuff.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Pretty hard not to play him. I mean, the club issued a statement saying we have full confidence that Bruno will become a number one goalkeeper in the future. But I mean, if you're bringing in someone like Trapp, I can't see how Bruno has any prospect of becoming a number one goalkeeper anytime soon. I mean, yes, they are going to play in the Europa League. They're already out of the cup, so there's not that many games that Bruno can play in going forward.
Yeah, he's a quality goalkeeper. He went to PSG, didn't play enough football. He wants to play regular Bundesliga football to, secure his place for the Germany squad. He's not, Manuel Neuer's not going to be around forever. Ter Stegen's obviously a major competition, but Trapp needs to be playing regular football. And where better for him than Eintracht Frankfurt, his former club.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how they play that one out between the sticks for Eintracht Frankfurt, bringing in a familiar face. But guys, let's talk a little bit about Bayern and how Bayern managed to dismantle Stuttgart. Mark, it almost seems like a regular occurrence or something that we've come to expect, that Bayern would go to a side like this and just completely whitewash them. I mean, I'm looking at the stats of this game because I knew it was obviously one-sided, but 24 shots to 4 without Stuttgart getting any shots on target. I mean, is there any possibility that Bayern are not going to win the league this year?
Oh, they'll win the league, Bryce. I'll put my house on it if I had one. Yeah, it's a foregone conclusion, But go back to Stuttgart against Bayern in May when Stuttgart beat them 4-1 in Munich. Yeah, obviously things are a little bit different. Bayern were already champions. Jupp Heynckes was in charge, and maybe they were on a hangover from the Champions League against Real Madrid. So, but a lot has gone on in Stuttgart since, and obviously Bayern are reinvigorated by the introduction of Niko Kovac, who's got them motivated and playing well early in the season. Never gave Stuttgart let's be honest, and it was an amazing contrast, those two games. The one in May, which Stuttgart handed Bayern their biggest defeat of the season, and this, early season, it could have been like a testimonial. It was just a walk in the park for Bayern. Once they got the first goal, it was damage limitation for Stuttgart, and but this is what we'll see in the Bundesliga 80% of the time. Not many sides, well, you name me one, actually believes that they can beat Bayern Munich. Let's be honest here. They're all damage limitation. None of them go out to beat Bayern. They're all a question of, trying to keep it tight, not trying to make mistakes, let in stupid goals. And none of them really try and expose Bayern's weaknesses. That only happens towards the later stages of the Champions League.
I disagree with that. I did this match and I had it down that Stuttgart would lose this game. Bryce, we chatted a little bit during this game, and Bayern have now won the last 8 away games in Stuttgart. So
10.
Is it 10? I had 8 from the Bundesliga. Oh, did you include Pokal games in that, Mark?
Yeah, all competitions.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I have it for the Bundesliga. So that makes it sound even worse. So 8 in the Bundesliga, 10 in all competitions. I did think though that before Bayern scored that first goal, Stuttgart was very much trying to exploit Bayern's limitations, which are I think in the build up. I think defensively there are issues with this Bayern squad, and I think too that on the wings it's really easy to shut them down. I just don't think that Korkut and Stuttgart have the tools to do so. I think that is really a big issue. And as for teams wanting to take the game to Bayern, I think they when you listen to what managers have said going into the season, I think a lot more managers feel that they can beat Bayern, because Koeman is already down, right? Gnabry is continuously has issues with injuries, and Robben and Ribéry are now 34 and 35. Was it 35 and 36, Mark?
34 and 35.
Yeah, so we're talking about 70 years on the wing, right? I just don't see how teams cannot exploit that. And I think there is a lot to be exploited. And I think
I hope you're right, Manu. I hope that.
I mean, you saw it in that first. I still think that if Hoffenheim should have walked away with a point there. I think that Bayern were extremely lucky to get that penalty because Ribéry happened to jump over a defender who was clearly getting out of his way. And the penalty retake and all of that jazz that was going around that, I think that other teams are looking at this and saying, this is not a team that's unbeatable. And they're not. I mean, there's a lot of things going on this Bayern side. And yes, early goings are good. But remember, you will remember this, Mark. Under Rehagel, they won the first 7 games and still didn't win the league. Right? I mean, we have seen this so many times that Bayern always start really, really well into every Bundesliga season, and everyone thinks, okay, they're unbeatable. But when you look into details, I do think if managers go to Munich or have them come to their stadiums and really look at the side and really look at where they can be exploited, I think there's a lot of things that can be exploited in this Bayern side, and I'm not sure Niko Kovac has he's a good personality. People love playing for him, but I'm not sure if he has the tactical ability to really react to, let's say, the Nagelsmanns or the Rangnicks or the Fabres of the Bundesliga. I don't think he's quite there.
I hope you're right. I hope that other teams do believe that they can actually win. I don't sense that. You know, I've been going to the Allianz Arena a long time, and there's very few teams that actually believe that they can really beat Bayern Munich on their own turf. Kovac, for me, has done he's been a revelation since he's come in. Everyone was thinking he was going to play this negative football. He's coming in from Frankfurt, going to play counter-attacking football. Or what's he going to do? But he's been a breath of fresh air. I've really been impressed. And obviously, the injury to Kingsley Coman on the wing, that's going to be a blow in the short term, but he'll be back by the winter. And it won't really affect them in the Bundesliga. If that's just my opinion, because there's no real belief that they can get to Bayern. Yeah, and if they close down the wings, Lewandowski will get you, or Goretzka. Goretzka's a great signing, a free signing, which Bayern will love doing. They take Schalke's best player for no money, like they did to Dortmund and got Lewandowski. And they've got Neuer back. Yeah, and they've kept Boateng, in my opinion, the best defender they've got when fit. They've collected a huge amount of money on players that they wanted to get rid of, and they'll go big in the transfer market next year. They'll win the Bundesliga. I'm sorry to be that fatalistic, but I just don't see any real belief from or any challenges.
Well, let's go to Matthew on this. Let's break you two up. Matthew, what do you reckon? Do you see anybody challenging Bayern or possibly knocking them off the top? I mean, it's 6 points out of a possible 6 so far. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
No. I think it's just wishful thinking, really. It's a bit of a stain on the Bundesliga, unfortunately. When I talk to a lot of people in Portugal and told them, I'm a bit involved in the Bundesliga now, they all have the same reaction, unfortunately. It is what it is. The finances are just way too strong, as Mark just pointed out. I mean, so many of these key players, they didn't even have to pay anything for them. It's unbelievable. As soon as another team looks like getting close, they'll just poach their best players. And I don't think this Robin Ribery thing is that much of a big deal. Sure, they're 34, 35, not as quick as they were, but they're still better than, 75% of the fullbacks that they come up against each week in the Bundesliga. The only thing you can look at, and you have looked at, is okay, what if Lewandowski goes down? They don't have a whole lot of depth in the fullback positions, but they brought in Wagner to cover Lewandowski. Muller can play up there. You've got James who can come in and play a number of positions across the line behind the striker. They've reinforced central midfield. I mean, this team is just unbeatable in the Bundesliga. I don't think there's much doubt about it. You could say Kovac, okay, it's a new situation for him managing a club of this stature, but it's just not going to matter. It's all about the Champions League for Bayern Munich, and if they don't get it done this year, like Manu and everybody has been saying, they're getting ready for a big money move, and probably just discussing who that might be more interesting than if they're going to win the Bundesliga, to be honest.
Well, Manu, we talked about transfers and Bayern Munich there a little bit. There was 2 players that were potentially going to leave, going to PSG, but that didn't exactly happen. What exactly was the situation there?
Oh, I love this headline. Hoeneß at his best. I don't often agree with Oli, but I did here. And so PSG came in with late bids for Renato Sanchez, and we're bidding on Jerome Boateng. I think that one thing, Mark is quite right. When he's fit, he is one of the best defenders in the league. But unfortunately, I know that he has been, behind closed doors. Everyone knows that there is maybe 20 top level games that you get out of his thigh muscle. That's about it. It just isn't what it used to be, and that's why Bayern were not too worried about him potentially leaving, right? They were actually quite happy to take the money, but PSG made offers and then didn't follow up. It's kind of like when you make a transfer offer on Football Manager and then you just let it go, right? So, Hoeneß and Hasan Salihamidzic heavily criticized PSG sporting director Antero Henrique. Hoeneß said that if I was PSG, I would be looking at a different face to represent this club. So quite a strong statement, and it's very typical Hoeneß-like. So yeah, I guess Boateng is here to stay.
Well, Boateng, he could have left if PSG had stumped up the money. Bayern were clear on record as saying they want 50 million, and obviously there's this belief that PSG have a lot of money, but I think they're struggling with financial fair play, and in the end, they wanted to stump up 40 million, and Bayern said no thanks. Bottom line is, Bayern do not lose many games with Boateng playing. Yeah. 28 last season, undefeated with Boateng starting, and when he went off in the Champions League semi-final, Bayern were winning 1-0. And they ended up losing to
Mark. I 100%
tells my own story.
I 100% agree with you that when he's fit, there is not many defenders like him in the world. He's a fantastic player, but I do know that thigh muscle is just, he's so athletic and so fast and such a tall guy. And unfortunately, he doesn't get very many games on that top level out of his body anymore, which is really too bad.
Well, maybe that's good that Niko Kovac is going to rotate the three of them. He's got Mats Hummels, Niklas Süle, so it's probably good and in Boateng's best interest that he is rotated to look after himself. Kovac just needs to sell that idea to Boateng.
Yeah, he's a big fan of Süle too, Kovac is, which makes sense because I think that Süle is a fantastic prospect.
Yeah, everyone assumes that he's a very slow, big unit, but he's the quickest of the lot, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's deceptive for sure. Sorry, I just wanted to say, look, it's not Bayern's fault that it seems like it's a one-horse race. I mean, I kind of draw parallels to like Golden State Warriors in a way that people sort of complain that they're so dominant, but other teams have every opportunity to go out there in the market, be sharp with their scouting, get a good manager in. I mean, of course, some teams it's a little bit unrealistic, but we saw with Leicester and things like that, Monaco not that long ago, anything can happen. And teams like Dortmund, Leverkusen, Leipzig, they're not that far away financially if a few little things go their way. They just got to be a bit smarter, a bit better. But as we've seen with all these clubs, they just haven't been that sharp recently with their recruitment and, their management. So just to be clear, it's not blaming Bayern for what's happening with being so dominant. It's up to some of these other clubs to get their act together and mount a serious challenge. And
Matt, they have done it all on their own money. There was no rich oligarch that came in and just opened their purses to do it. I think you're quite right. They have been very, very good, not just over the last 10 years, but 40 years even to get to this position where they are now.
Well, I think we also need to talk, as Matt said, about sides that maybe didn't get their act together in the transfer window. I think that it makes a perfect bridge for us to talk about RB Leipzig. Manu, they failed to get deals for Rudy and Lookman over the line, as the final few days just passed by. And we mentioned last year about how playing in Europe and playing domestically, the squad just wasn't deep enough and they couldn't cope with it. And they've dropped points again this time.
Yeah, maybe to talk about the transfers first. This is classic Rangnick. He's known for his indecisiveness, and I think that you could really tell in this transfer window what that means. He was interested in Sebastian Rudy, but then he wasn't sure whether he should go for it. He really wanted Ademola Lookman, even though Everton in the end made it quite clear that he was not available. There were players, and we can now say this, that then Tyler Adams from New York Red Bulls, this is a transfer that's pretty much done. He'll come in January, like Alphonso Davies is going to Bayern in January. And that's because of the transfer window and the fact that they are mid-season in MLS, right? They want to finish the season here first, and New York Red Bulls have a good chance of winning the title in MLS. So they didn't want to jeopardize that. But this is classic. I mean, they signed another striker. They brought in Sarachi, as a wingback, who I think is a fantastic signing, by the way. But they didn't address that massive hole in midfield, which is Naby Keita. And I guess, Tyler Adams will fill that somewhat. The other rumor is, of course, Amadou Haidara from Salzburg, although Salzburg are heavily denying that a deal has been reached. I think that when the marching orders come from, Vissel am See, where Red Bull's headquarters are, then that deal will just go through. That can fill that. But I mean, until then, they have to play an entire Europa League group stage, and they have to be competitive in the Bundesliga, and they're still in the Pokal. That's a lot of football until the winter break. And I think they don't have the depth necessary for that. I mean, I saw today in Kicker that there's only 18 fit players. How are you going to be competitive in three league games and play a style of football that's very physical draining? Because that's how Rangnick plays. He plays a very draining style of football on his players. And I don't think they have the squad depth for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a difficult season for Leipzig. I tipped them to come second to Bayern before the season, but obviously none of you were listening to that. That was in hindsight probably a mistake, but I'm going to hang in there with Leipzig. They have a lot of talent, but looking at it now, it's going to be like a holding season. Just trying to get into Europe and have Nagelsmann take over and take Leipzig to the next level. next season. But that seems a long way off at the moment. Obviously, they've started their season very, very early. They played a lot of games already, and they're already in need of an international break to try and get a few more players fit, and then to go again and play better in the Bundesliga. They are expected to beat Dusseldorf, of course. A lot of pressure on to win. They got lucky in Europe to qualify with a last-minute penalty by Forsberg. Another player that's still there at the club, another player perhaps that you don't, do you really think his heart's in it? He'd rather be playing for the likes of Arsenal or AC Milan, that's for sure. And, Leipzig have got, a few players like that who you feel that if the money came in, they'd be off.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation at Leipzig. This could just go so many different ways, As Mark said, they were quite fortunate in the end to get through in the Europa League. Just so much talent. But my question is Timo Werner. I don't know if you guys agree, but what I've noticed in the last year or so, just his positioning, he just tends to be, for me anyway, just drifting way too far wide, coming way too deep, and I think it affected how he performed for the national team as well. I think when he was doing so well before, he wasn't doing that. He was pretty much hanging around the box, looking for those through balls, running in behind the defence. And for some reason, he sort of changed his game and trying to do everything, trying to be the all-rounder or something. I don't get it. I don't know if you guys agree, but this is quite interesting. This could just go so many ways. I tend to think that Rangnick will get it together eventually, and they'll finish up there in fourth, fifth, somewhere again with the quality they have. It just might take him a little bit more time, and it might be a little bit more difficult a project than he anticipated before he stepped back into the managerial hot seat.
Real quick on Werner, because this is something that I've also noticed during the World Cup, Matt, and I think that he's not a single number 9 striker. He needs to have someone to play with. And yeah, you're quite right. He does drift quite a bit, often to the left. And this is something that Germany, that's something that caused a lot of problems for Germany at the World Cup, because he was out left, right? And there was no one in the middle. But you have to remember that, at the Comfort Cup, they played often 3-5-2, right? So he had someone in the middle with Stindl. And at Leipzig, he often plays with someone in the middle as well, with Paulsen, or with Augustin. And so that's why he does it. But if he doesn't have the player, because Matheus Cunha, who they brought in this summer, who I think is a fantastic player, he does the exact same thing. He also drifts, right? So when you have 2 strikers drifting, who's going to put in the balls in the middle of the park? It's just not going to happen. So I think you quite rightly identified. It's not a new thing, but we're just noticing it more because he doesn't have someone to play with.
Well, guys, I think we just need to touch on Schalke quickly. Another team that's going to be trying to balance playing across Europe and domestically after a very positive season last year, playing some fantastic stuff under Tedesco, or getting the results that they certainly needed to get them back into Europe, as they feel that they should be there all along, really. But Mark, if we go to you, I mean, we've seen them lose this weekend, this Sunday, to Hertha, a game that last year they probably would have won. I mean, what seems to be the situation there, and can they balance a possible European campaign as well as a domestic one? I mean, if you look at the group, as Manu said, it's fallen rather kindly for them with Porto, Galatasaray and Lokomotiv Moscow. They should be expected to get through that, really.
Go back to those expectations, Bryce, again, Schalke outperformed expectations last season by finishing runners up, and everyone thought that they've added a few useful players over the summer, and they're going to have a decent season. And then they brought in Sebastian Rudy for the engine room, and they started the season with a defeat against Wolfsburg, a team that they would have been expected to beat, and then another awkward game at the weekend against Hertha BSC at home in front of their own fans. You don't help yourself by missing a penalty after 13 minutes. Schalke won a lot of games 1-0 last season, and they, scoring the first goal, enabling them to play their, cagey football and hit them on the break. That wasn't going to work against Hertha when they conceded soon after missing that penalty, and they were fighting a losing battle. Never really looked like getting back in the game, and Hertha punished them with a last minute brilliant free kick from Duda, who scored twice, and a good win for Hertha, who are joint top. Let's give them some credit. But Schalke, they're going to struggle, on those fronts. Champions League and the Bundesliga, they haven't, that squad, do you really see them? Yeah, it's going to be, everyone's saying that's an easy Champions League group, but that creates its own pressure. Schalke should qualify, and teams do not always react well to that pressure.
Matt, what about you? How do you feel that Schalke are going to get on in Europe this year? Do you agree with Mark that there's going to be added pressures because of the more fortunate group that they've managed to get?
Yeah, it's interesting, Bryce. I was there last night for the game. Interestingly, they both lined up with the three at the back, but then Karim Rekic got injured in the first few minutes. But I'm pretty sure Pal Dardai saw the weakness with Weston McKennie on the right side of the back three, and brought on Javaro Dilrosun, who was involved in opening goal. But I could talk about these. Let me just break it down quickly, I guess. I think Tedesco might be just trying to do too much, if you know what I mean, trying to be a bit too clever, trying to get his players to do too many different formations. You saw McKennie yesterday all over the place, playing different positions. Okay, they were chasing the game late and threw Naldo up front, but I think Tedesco is still a very good manager, and I think he'll figure it out. I think, he might be making a few little errors here, but I think he's smart enough, and will think about things. And his comments after the game indicated that he took it on himself, and I'm sure he might keep it a bit more simple, and he hinted that they'll do what they do best, whatever that is. But I just don't think this squad is that good. I think they overachieved last season and took advantage of some of the other sides that underachieved. I don't think this squad, I'm not really feeling that much love for Christian Heidel as much as other people are. I don't think they'll get out of this group. I think they've got a really tough run of fixtures. I think Porto, from what I saw, will beat them in the first game, and then they've got to play two games on the road, tough games in Moscow and in Istanbul. That's not going to be easy. And of course, even in the Bundesliga, they have to go to Mönchengladbach next, and then host Bayern Munich. So it's an ugly run of fixtures, the next three. And to be honest, from what I saw, they struggle to win any of them. So cut it short. I think Tedesco is still a very good manager, and he'll figure it out. But this squad isn't as good as people think. And, you saw with Bubba, he was basically booed off the pitch yesterday. He had a bit of a shocker. Mendel won't take long to come in and take over the left back spot. But, without going on too much, I just think they're a little bit overrated personnel-wise, Schalke.
Well, Manu, let's go to you for a quick yes or no. Will Schalke get through their Champions League group?
Yes, they will.
Nice answer. Okay, we're going to talk about the German national side now. Manu, we'll go back to you. A few surprises in this squad ahead of a game against France and then Peru.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that too much because, of course, we're almost out of time, right, Bryce? But yeah, a few. Although Matt called that Nico Schulz would be included. Good for you, Matt. You got that right. And Thilo Kehrer, I think, is a great addition as well. Kai Havertz, I'm really looking forward to seeing him. Glad to see Niels Patterson back. I think he really deserves another look. I think.
Why?
Because he's the striker in the center that Timo Werner needs to play with, and we're going to that team will go 3-5-2. But they will not longer play the style of football that they shouldn't have played at the World Cup either. I think Löw made a big mistake by going from 3-5-2, which he used at the Confed Cup, to 4-2-3-1 at the World Cup. They they were just found out. And maybe to talk about these UEFA Nations League, a lot of people in Germany are saying they could get relegated from that. I think they'll comfortably finish second behind France. France is of course a great side, but I think this is still a very good team. This is a team that should have probably done a lot better at the World Cup had it not been for all that side noise that was going on in the squad. I was at the World Cup and I was following the German national team quite closely throughout the tournament. And I think they were outdone not by talent, but by all the things that were going on in the dressing room and around the club. And of course, Joachim Löw not focusing on his job, but on everything else.
Yeah, I expect Germany to beat France. It's basically a glorified friendly. Germany motivated to repair some damage from the World Cup, and France, they'll come and as the world champions. They're missing their goalkeeper, which is a big loss, Hugo Lloris. I expect France to roll over and have their tummy tickled. Germany to win comfortably, and everyone, happy, joyous, and free again about the brilliant Jogi Löw and the German national team, or even Die Mannschaft.
Oh no, not Die Mannschaft. That needs to go. But that's Bryce. That's Mark's tip.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not convinced that they're going to just roll over France. I saw France at a lot of the games in the World Cup. I do think that this is a game that's level. Germany were not as bad as their result was at the World Cup. I think that if everything would have gone normal, this team should have still competed for winning the trophy or defending the trophy. It's just things didn't go normal. But I'm not convinced that France will just roll over. Sorry, Mark.
Well, I think Germany will win comfortably. How's that?
That sounds. I'll take your bet. I'm happy with it.
and guys, I think that's a great place to end the podcast. I think we've managed to cover plenty today, especially with two fantastic guests on here joining Manu and I. But guys, let's just go to Matt first. Matt, where can people find you on the likes of Twitter or online, or what would you like to draw people's attentions to that you may have coming up in the next few weeks?
Just follow me on Twitter, Noobs Corp with a Z in the middle. I'll be hitting quite a few games, doing some major kilometers in the Toyota. So, loving it. And if you're interested in any of that stuff, jump on, and you'll find me also on the Football Grad Network writing some stuff after games. And that's all happening.
Yeah, you certainly will. If you go to @FootballGradLive, I'm sure you'll see plenty of Matt's videos and much more. Mark, it's always a pleasure having you on. It's always so much fun, even just to hear you and Manu go at it. I sit back, put my feet up, and enjoy it, if I do say so. Mark, what would you like to possibly draw people's attention to, or where can people find your work online?
I'd just like to clarify, I'll put my fee for appearing on this illustrious podcast, I'll put it on Germany to beat France, okay, with Manu's permission, of course. Mm-hmm. But you can still find me on ESPN, writing the odd piece about Bayern Munich, and I'm also freelancing for other outlets at the moment, and always looking for work to pay for some nappies.
Nice work. Okay, Manu, what have you got going on? There's always plenty going on across the Football Grad Network.
Yeah, I just finished actually a big in-depth article on Tyler Adams heading to RB Leipzig. That's actually not on Football Grad Network. That's on my full-time gig at brosoccerusa.com. So if you're interested in that, go over there and check it out. On the Football Grad Network, we have previews for the national team games. There's a preview on what the UEFA Nations League actually is. It's a bit more than a glorified friendly. You can actually qualify for the Euros by winning it. So that's all explained over on Fußballstadt. And then we have previews on the Russia, Ukraine, and Germany game, and a few others that will all come up this week.
Fantastic. Always plenty going on, as I said. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Bryce Dunn. You can find me on Twitter at BryceDunn11. Enjoy the international break if you can. And we'll speak to you rather soon. Auf Wiedersehen.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen, dich abzuholen.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.